Hello, I'm I.D. Johnson, author of the Clandestine Saga, and with the third book in the series coming out soon, Repercussion, I decided to go ahead and read you part of Book 1, Transformation. You can purchase this for only 99 cents on ebook on Amazon right now, or you can get the paperback on CreateSpace. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading from Chapter 1 of Transformation. "We really should do something fun while we're all in town," Drew exclaimed as she plopped herself down on a giant pink beanbag chair next to the window in Cadence's bedroom. The rest of her friends were strewn about the room already. Taylor and Sydney on the bed, John and Cash in the two small chairs across the room, Jack slumped against the wall next to the chairs. How many times had they all crashed here during high school? Now that all of them, except for Drew, the baby of the group, had graduated from high school and gone on with their lives, these times were much more rare, and it had occurred to Cadence more than once that evening that this may be the last time she had her gang all together. While her friends continued their idle chatter, Cadence Finley sat in front of her computer screen, trying to finish the last 2 pages of her English paper. Professor Martin was such a jerk for giving them homework over Thanksgiving break. If she could just get this done, she could finally enjoy her friends' company, rather than haphazardly chiming in from time to time and occasionally shooting annoying glances in their direction when they got a little overzealous in their employment of a week free off school. The group was a bit of an eclectic collection of personalities. Cadence was never quite sure what the glue was that kept them together, though Taylor insisted that Cadence was the glue. She didn't think so. With her long brown hair, large brown eyes, and perfectly proportioned facial features, she had been fairly popular in high school. Yet she'd always felt there was something different about herself, like she never quite fit in with the rest of the kids in school. She'd had participated in extracurricular activities, like cheerleading and choir. She had attended the dances and pretended to care about what others thought of her hair and her clothes. But at the end of the day, she always felt that the worries of high school were nothing compared to the real world. When she graduated last May, there was no question she was going away to college. She would have liked to have gone even further than the University of Iowa in Iowa City, but they offered her a pretty nice scholarship, and she took it. And it wasn't so far away that she couldn't drive back to her hometown of Shenandoah for holidays such as this. None of her friends had gone with her. In fact, she and Jack had broken off their 2-year-long relationship because he did not want her to go. He had already signed on to play baseball for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, a pretty big deal, and was hoping that he would show up big man on campus with his pretty little lady on his arm. But Cadence had other plans for her life, and his insistence that she follow him to Lincoln had ended their relationship, though they had somehow managed to remain friends, something that Cadence was thankful for. The rest of the group had scattered to other institutes of higher learning, with the exception of John, who went to work for his father's plumbing company for a bit, hoping to save some money before starting college. And Drew was a senior in high school this year. She had been on the cheerleading squad with the other girls, and though her peppiness was often annoying, she had wedged her way into their group via a short-lived relationship with Cash. "Cadence, didn't you hear me?" Drew's chipper voice chimed in from the corner. Cadence had been so preoccupied with finishing her assignment she had no idea what the rest of the group was talking about. "I said, have you ever heard of an Idleline festival?" Temporarily pulling her eyes away from the computer screen, Cadence turned to address the spunky little blonde. "A what?" "That's exactly what I just said," Jack chuckled from his slumped position on the floor. "It's so cool," Drew said, bounding up from the floor and crossing to where Cadence sat in front of the computer. "I saw a flyer the other day in this gas station. We've got to check it out." "Because a gas station is where I always go to meet my entertainment needs," John mumbled sarcastically as Drew shoved her way between Cadence and the computer. "What are you doing?" Cadence asked, watching helplessly as Drew grabbed the mouse out of her hand and opened up Chrome. "Okay, so Miss English teacher," she said, referring to Cadence's career ambition, "what does Idleline mean?" Cadence thought for a moment. She knew she'd heard the word before, but she wasn't precisely sure she knew the correct definition. In fact, she would be surprised if Drew knew. She wasn't exactly known for her broad vocabulary. Taylor was standing behind her chair now, a purple pillow pressed against her chest. Sounds like a place lazy people go to drink wine, if you ask me. Drew snorted and rolled her eyes. It's Adeline, not idle wine, she exclaimed. Isn't like a ghost or something? Cadence asked. Drew was frantically searching Google, trying to find more information than what she had seen on the flyer in the gas station. I've never heard of it before, Cash remarked, but if it's a party, you can count me in. A party about ghosts? Sydney asked. She was still sitting on the bed, but was no longer reclining. She strained her neck to peer across the short distance to Cadence's computer screen. It just means a specter or a phantom, Drew proclaimed. I know. I looked it up on dictionary.com. And that makes you an expert, John added in his typical sarcastic tone. I'm not an expert, Drew responded as she continued various searches containing the words Eidolon and festival and Iowa, but I would like to be. Well, what did the flyer say? Taylor asked. Drew continued to search, now adding the word secret in her search criteria. It was kind of cryptic for a flyer. It just said something like Eidolon, Gather, Percy's Lot, Valiska, Witching Hour, November 26th. I probably wouldn't even notice if I hadn't dropped my keys. The rest of her friends exchanged questioning glances, but Drew didn't notice. She continued to search as the others drew straws non-verbally to determine who got to ask exactly what Drew meant. Finally, John exclaimed, Explain! Drew was used to having to explain herself. She was a bit ditzy at times, most of the time. She sighed in frustration. I was walking out of the gas station, and I dropped my keys. I bent down to pick them up, and I noticed a red scrap of paper sticking out from behind a trash can. It was bright red, so it caught my attention. So I grabbed it and read it, and I had no idea what Eidolon meant, but I knew that festival meant party. So I tried to find out more info on my phone, but I couldn't find anything else out about it. I did find out that Eidolon means phantom, though, which sounds cool. So I think we should go. It'll be totally creepy and fun. So, for all you know, this is like a private party? Taylor asked, confused. No, I don't think so. It's the festival, and it was a typed flyer, so it's not like someone just wrote a note and dropped it. They want people to go, Drew said, a bit defensively. Then why don't they advertise it, or at least have a website? Sydney wanted to know. Drew sighed, tossing the mouse away and crossing back to the beanbag chair. Come on, guys! She exclaimed. All of you are off in college or working, and I'm here going to flippin' high school. I never get to have any fun. Would you please just go with me? It sounds kind of cool to me, Cash agreed. For a moment, Cadence wondered why Drew and Cash ever broke up. Listen, it was Taylor this time. It's the night before Thanksgiving. I don't think my parents will like it if I'm out partying until the wee hours of the morning. My mom is going to expect me to help with the dinner, you know. What time is the witching hour anyway? Midnight? Sydney asked, her expression seeming to indicate that she was considering going with Drew. No, Cadence said almost automatically. It's 3 a.m. Are you sure? Jack asked. I always heard it was midnight. Cadence's glance became a bit sterner. I'm sure, she replied. Search engine it, Taylor said, taking over the mouse. John laughed. Because the word Google is trademarked, he commented quietly, almost to himself. She's right, Taylor exclaimed. It is 3 a.m. Says so right here. On Wikipedia, the most reliable source of information since the invention of the internet? John sneered. No, it's not Wikipedia. It's a site about witches, Taylor said defensively. There's no way I'm going to a party at 3 a.m. the night before Thanksgiving, Sydney stated emphatically, her hands tugging absently on her light brown ponytail. Me neither, Taylor agreed. Come on, Drew pleaded. We've gone out that late lots of times. Remember when we snuck off to Red Oak Tap? We all told our parents we were staying at Cadence's house, and she told her mom she was staying at your house, Sid? It was the best time ever. Sydney seemed to contemplate this argument for a moment, her green eyes flickering with memories of times well spent with this group of friends. I don't know, she said, as the tides began to turn in favor of one last hurrah with her gang. Well, I'm in, and I'll drive, Cash said, slapping both hands down on his legs. I'm too scared to go, Taylor proclaimed, pouncing back on the bed next to Sydney. You'll be fine, Cash proclaimed. I'll protect you, John added, rapidly raising and lowering his eyebrows. Taylor laughed. John was always flirting with her, but thus far nothing had ever happened between them. You're going then? She asked, tossing her long blonde hair back over her shoulder. Well, John said hesitantly. He looked at Cash, who was nodding his head. The two of them had gone almost everywhere together since the beginning of high school. Even now that Cash was attending Iowa Western Community College, they still found plenty of time to hang out together. He would hate to miss out on a chance to have another adventure with his best friend. I guess so, he said slowly. If Cash is going, then I'll go. I've never been to a festival based on wickedness before, but I can only assume this may be a prime opportunity to see some boobies. The girls all groaned in disgust, and Sydney threw a pillow at him, while the boys chuckled in agreement. Jack? Drew asked. Jack was fairly reserved, so the prospect of seeing topless women was not a motivating factor for him, at least not one that he was willing to verbalize. But the idea of spending time with his friends, one friend in particular, was appealing to him. I don't know, he began. Cadence, what do you think? Cadence had kept her back to the group as they discussed the potential adventure. She was hoping no one would notice that she was present, and therefore she wouldn't be asked to go. Of course, since they were sitting in her bedroom, the chances of this were slim. Well, she sighed, this certainly isn't my thing. There's nothing at all interesting to me about ghosts and goblins, vampires, and all that. Seriously? Drew asked, slumping her shoulders. She knew that if Cadence didn't want to go, she probably couldn't convince anyone else to go with her. Fine, I'll just go by myself, she pouted. I said I'd go, Cash reiterated, but Drew didn't lose her wounded kitten expression. I don't think it's a good idea for some of us to go, and not all of us, Jack said assertively. As much as Cadence wanted to disagree with him, he did have a point. Drew was only 17 years old, and even if Cash and John went with her, they still might end up in a situation that wasn't safe. However, if all 7 of them stuck together, like they always had, she felt better about their chances of avoiding evil, regardless of the theme of the revelry. She glanced at Sydney, who was chewing furiously on her bottom lip, a sign that she had not decided whether or not to risk it, and Taylor, who was staring at the floor, shaking her head back and forth slowly. Taylor clearly did not want to go. Then Cadence looked back at Drew. Her arms were crossed, her chin forced into her chest. Fine, she finally acquiesced. Let's go. The sky was pitch black, clouds covering whatever stars may dare to shine. The moon hung low, its enervating journey home to the horizon almost concluded. Though it was late November, the chill seemed to come from within, not from the cool breeze that gently nudged her back to the safety of their vehicle. A glitch in the passage of time took place, and suddenly they were in the midst of the festivities. Flashes of smoke and fire clouded her vision. Many of the participants were masked, or perhaps their faces were contorted. They wound their way amongst the ghouls and specters. A parade of undead gambled by, clad in crimson and black, shrill laughter ringing, percussion jarring them along. A pair of eyes that seemed to see through her very soul, pure evil incarnate. Suddenly their search was on. Frantically looking, running about, she did not know who or what she was looking for, but she knew she must become whole again at once. And then a vision of horror, scarlet droplets turning to an endless flow, disbelief overshadowed by rage, and it was over. An incessant need to run, to escape, to flee this place, never to return. They would never return. Cadence bolted upright. Despite the chilly room, she was sweating. At first, she couldn't remember exactly what she had been dreaming about, but she knew she had been sprinting in her dream, and her chest heaved as if she had been truly attempting to outrun a predator. She wiped her brow on the sleeve of her flannel pajamas, and after a moment to compose herself, turned to her nightstand and a drink of water. Whatever she had been dreaming, it was terrible, and she was afraid to go back to sleep. She glanced at the clock next to her bed. It was 3 a.m. She felt chills climbing up her spine as she realized at this time tomorrow she would be at the Idleline Festival. Suddenly she remembered she'd been dreaming about attending the fair, but if her dream was any indicator of what type of phantoms they might encounter at such a place, it wasn't ghosts and ghouls they should fear. It was vampires. Cadence pondered making a phone call to one of her friends, possibly Sydney or Taylor. As the details from her dream came flooding back, it seemed more and more real. Considering the time, she decided not to disturb them, though she was sure neither of them would mind if she woke them up to discuss her trepidation. Nevertheless, it was in fact just a dream. She finally withdrew her stare from her iPhone on the nightstand and slid back down under the covers. She would talk to Drew the next day and tell her she didn't think attending the Eyeline Festival was a good idea at all. That's the end of Chapter 1 of Transformation. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your feedback, so you can leave that in the comments, or you can contact me at on Twitter would probably be a good place. Author ID Johnson is my handle on Twitter, or find me on Amazon. And I hope that you will want to hear the rest of the book and possibly purchase it. Thank you so much.